Go ahead, Stephen.
Demaurice, I want to speak to a bigger issue. I hear everything that you're saying, and definitely it's something that we can discuss more extensively in the future. But I feel I have to piggyback to this point. When we hear what you just said, I have profound respect for you and the job that you've done, and I feel the same way about Commissioner Roger Goodell, although I don't always agree with everything anybody does. But I think that there's supposed to be a distinct difference between labor negotiations and labor relations. And when you listen to people, not myself, but people who cover the league, one of the things that is spoken about ad nauseum is the relationship or lack thereof that you personally have with Roger Goodell, that sometimes it appears to be so contentious that it's very, very difficult to get things done, to reach an accord because of your personal relationship with him or lack thereof. I'd like you to speak to that and tell us what your relationship is and what you think it should be.
There is an over-obsession about what our relationship is. Roger represents the owners. I represent the players. We are both empowered and entrusted to represent our various constituencies aggressively and fairly. And look, do I have a great relationship with Roger? Yes. Does it mean that we agree with everything? No. Does it mean that you're going to see us palling around all the time? No. But I refuse to believe that you have to have a world where people perceive that we're chummy all the time. I mean, look, my job is to not only represent the players of today, but as we know by thankfully having ESPN a part of our collegiate bowl game, we take a great interest in looking at the world of football that's going to be there for the players to come. And when I go to former player meetings and we made all those changes in the collective bargaining agreement to help our former players, look, one of the things that I will readily admit, are we at a place in the National Football League where I think the National Football League on its own can ensure the health and safety and wellness of our players? The answer is no. At each and every turn where we have wanted to make changes to make players safer, those have been fights with the National Football League. We're fighting over whether we have sideline concussion experts. We're fighting over whether protocols were employed on return to play. We have a player, I won't mention the team and certainly won't mention the player's name right now, but we have filed an Article 50 relating to a case where a player got over 16 injections of Toradol. And we know that it resulted in ulcers that he suffered, and the league and the team is taking the position that the ulcers came from Red Bull and Coca-Cola.
But Article 50 allows you to investigate, so that's
well, of course, yeah. But see, my point, and I guess going to Stephen's point, when the league takes positions that thwarts the workers' compensation benefits of our players, I can guarantee you there's going to be a fight. When the league doesn't follow its own protocols about when a player should go back in, I guarantee you there's going to be a fight. So at the end of the day, I don't go to bed at night, I don't wake up in the morning wondering whether or not we have a better relationship. You know, what I care about is whether this union has the ability and the wherewithal to fight for the things that matter for our players. And I think, you know, frankly, from a system that we've all grown up with here in the country, a two-party system or hey, look, it's the system that we have, and sometimes it means that things don't get done as quickly as we want. But you need both sides to be strong to be able to fight.
Aren't you paid to be contentious, at least courteously contentious?
Well, my guess is so is he.
Oh, sure.
And it seems to me that yes, I think that we have a responsibility on ourselves to try to make the game better for our players and for our fans, and certainly for our management and our owners. But I'm sure you guys heard about the alleged bounty investigation. We didn't agree. And because we had a strong union, our players were vindicated at the end of the day.
Yes, they were.
And that only came from what I will tell you, a nasty and somewhat brutish and technical fight.
Now, you know what the league would say, however, even though I looked at it and
don't.
Definitely.
I don't know what
let
they
me
would
say
say.
this.
Yeah.
All right, well, let me say this. basically, to my eyes and to Joe Public, we look at the fact that they were suspended and all of this other stuff, and ultimately the suspensions were vacated. Their money, obviously, they got paid for it, and they were allowed to play. And we look at that as exoneration. You know, from a technical perspective or from a legalese perspective, you will look at the words of Paul Tagliabue saying that Roger Goodell had, you know, ample evidence, you know, and had the rationale and the reasoning to come to the conclusion that he came to, but ultimately the players were just following orders of a Sean Payton, of a Greg Williams rather, and as a result of that, it doesn't make Roger Goodell wrong, but he's just he's taking the culpability away from the players and putting it on the team. To those guys, that's not exonerating the players. What do you say to that?
Well, you know, sometimes, you know, in this business, everybody sort of looks at the end. Very few people today, it seems to me, have time to look at the process. Here was the process. Right. The process was, if you remember, the league started out on a PR campaign where they said that there were dozens of players involved in a scheme to do what? Injure players. It turns out that while they talked about dozens of players, by the time we got through the process, it was a smaller number of players. You had people talking about emails that talked about bounties that the league didn't even rely on when they were held accountable to the process. And as a person who sat there and read every page of the transcript, whether it was from Joe Vitt, Greg Williams, or other people involved in that bounty, what I was shocked by from the process was none of the words that came out of their mouth substantiated the league's PR machine. So it seems to me that while I know all of you have not been privy to the transcripts, and we certainly don't have a problem with those transcripts becoming public, Stephen, what I champion and what all of our players champion is we were able to force a process that ultimately resulted in the fact that those players didn't lose their games. Now, frankly, I will tell you, do I think the fans in New Orleans got the raw end of that deal? Yes, they did. Do I know that Sean Payton got the raw end of that deal? Yes, he did. Because I know from reading each and every page of that transcript that what the National Football League said occurred never occurred.
All right. Executive Director of the NFL Players Association, Demaurice Smith, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
It was a pleasure.
Appreciate it. Pleasure.
More First Take
Thank
after
you,
the
Demaurice.
break. Stay with us, everyone.